What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this video I want to talk about Life is Strange and 2025. Are we expecting anything? Recapping, I guess, the year that we just had, and boy, was it an eventful one. Going into the year and hearing about Life is Strange Double Exposure from IGN, right? Talking about Deck 9, talking a little bit about Telltale, and then, finally being revealed at the Xbox event. Kind of crazy that we've gone through the arc, not just that we went through the arc we went through with Life is Strange in general, right? But also that it started so recently, like started in June. It was such a quick ramp up to release, which honestly, I will say, I prefer it that way. Please show more of your games 4 months before they come out. I thought that was a very exciting time in between June and then when the game came out. And, it went the way that it went. And I mean, not just did the game do what it did, but also, you had the aftermath and you had a lot, probably around maybe 18 to 20 people that we can absolutely say for a fact were working on Double Exposure. So the higher ups, right? Some lead writers, the leads of the game just in general. I mean, this was a full-scale swap. And so now going into 2025, what's next for Life is Strange? I guess that's kind of the question, right? And the answer, I will say, the answer is almost kind of anticlimactic because I think 2025 is a year of relative silence. And it's only because yes, they were talking so optimistically, about the future. And look, I guess there's a couple predictions that we can still say, right? Will Life is Strange continue? The answer, in my opinion, is yes. Will Life is Strange still continue at Deck 9? I think, honestly, the answer is still yes. And it's for the same reasons I've said for the last 6 months. It's not a knock on them, but that's what they do. They do Life is Strange. They have trouble doing other stuff. It doesn't seem like they get contracts for other things, or at least they rarely do. They struggle, I guess, to make their own thing, or maybe they're not able to make their own thing. They've got to do the Life is Strange contract with Square Enix, and that's 95% of why Deck 9 is even still standing. So you might like it, you might hate it. Doesn't really matter, honestly. It's just that they need to do it. They need Life is Strange, otherwise Deck 9 is no longer around. So that makes me believe that, yeah, I mean, they laid off a good amount of their whole team. This team probably lost, maybe 10, 15% of its workforce. And again, they lost some of the people, the decision makers of Double Exposure. Now, the question is, of course, how much does Square Enix have to say and have to do with the final result versus the head creatives, right? The problem might not be solved is basically what I'm saying, but you do have this full-scale change, right? But again, like I said, I do believe it's still happening, Life is Strange. I still believe it's still happening at Deck 9. I guess you could also ask yourself the question, is it still happening with Max, right? Is that plan still going on? I mean, look, in a perfect world, for me, they would still continue with Max and they would learn from a lot of the stuff that's just happened. A lot of the stuff that's been talked about since Double Exposure came out was it best that this franchise has been an anthology thing, right? Where it just kind of jumps around. And, we talked about that leading in, where I think it's fine, if that's what they want to do. And I feel like that was kind of the original plan, right? Don't Nod wanted to leave Max and Chloe alone, and they went to Sean and Daniel. Then you had Before the Storm, so it's okay, we're going to go back to kind of familiar characters, but we're telling something new. And then you have True Colors, which was obviously different, and then you're back to Double Exposure. So they've jumped around. I think the franchise is okay and would work as an anthology thing. But I have said since the beginning, if Life is Strange were to, in the very beginning, was to be connected to Max, and Max Caulfield was Life is Strange, and that was just how it was, I also think that would have been fine, and that would have worked. You got to be creative, you got to be clever, and you got to be able to kind of continue that story for sure. But I absolutely do think you could have done it, and you could have made a sequel to Max, in Double Exposure, depending on how you feel about it. But I think you can keep going. I think you could keep going with Max. So again, in my ideal world, you keep going with her. You could even, I mean, look, because it's, you got to respect the past. That's something that, like it or hate it, I don't like Life is Strange 2 as much as other people do, but you got to respect that it exists, right? Double Exposure exists, so you can't really wipe that out. But if you were to make another sequel, a third game in the Max Caulfield trilogy, you got to follow it. So you kind of have Safi and Diamond and all them, but I think you can do it. And I think you kind of just have to get back to the roots of what Life is Strange is, which is easier said than done. But I do believe that that can actually happen. And you got to learn. You got to learn from what happened with Double Exposure, and you got to move forward positively, I suppose. But now again, what do we actually get this year? The thing that I'm looking for is just kind of confirmation that anything is happening. That's what I think is the most realistic, because again, while we're having all this discussion discussion. And while double exposure leaves us in like this state of limbo, right? And then you have the layoffs right after. It's not just the double exposure did what it did, but then also they lay off the people, right? So it's like, okay, now we're sitting here and saying, well, is there a future, all this, all that? And 2025, well, in Deck 9, whatever they're working on, like this is the quietest year, right? Like even if it takes them 3 years per game, which is about what they do. And actually, I kind of greatly appreciate that as well. Let's not take 6 years for these games. Let's take 3. That's good. But still, this would be year 1, right? And I mean, yes, if you give them a little bit of time, maybe they started prototyping a sequel to Double Exposure, say in the summer. So maybe they've been doing like half a year. They didn't just start yesterday. They're still in that first year. Okay, so 2025 is the quietest, and then maybe you hear something in 26, but then it's most likely 27 where you'd actually start to be confirmed. Okay, it's going to star this character and it's going to be like this, be like that. So 2025 is just going to be quiet. I guess for me, it's just, can we get any kind of sign? Are people paying attention to Hannah Tell, right? Is she back in Colorado? But no, like anything, right? Anything. It's like, do they have a new director for like a second game or, whatever ends up happening? Like, can we kind of spot those things? And is there informal confirmation that they're even doing a Life is Strange game moving forward? That's kind of where I'm at, because also, again, you got to think like Square Enix has the rights, and for whatever it's worth and whatever their relationship is with Deck 9, like Deck 9 is that Life is Strange studio. I don't know. I don't think they would take it from them and move it somewhere else. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that kind of cleaning the upper tier house like they did and just trying it again, that's their strategy. That's what they wanted to do. So I personally believe Deck 9 will still make it, but again, 2025 I think is just going to be a year of hopefully trying to figure out that that's absolutely the case, and then we can kind of move forward from there. It'll be a quieter year, but Life is Strange fans I think are used to quieter years. That happens quite often. However, we do get the 10-year anniversary, by the way, of Life is Strange, which is going to be extremely, extremely cool. I'm going to have plenty of videos across my channels actually on that game, so stay tuned, because it is going to be a special year for the Life is Strange fandom, just not maybe for the future. It's more about like looking back to the past, but we'll talk about that as the year goes on. Let me know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.